human in the age of machines. GDP is at its record highs. So is burnout, purposelessness, and the search for meaning. What does economics miss when it measures output, but not the human cost of optimizing everything? Here is a number for you. In 2024, the global GDP crossed $110 trillion. That is the highest it has ever been in human history. We are, by every economic measure, the most productive civilization that has ever existed on this planet. Here is another number. According to the World Health Organization, burnout is now so widespread it has been classified as an occupational phenomenon. The American Psychological Association's 2023 Stress in America report found that more than 57% of adults describe themselves as overwhelmed by the pace of life. The most productive civilization in history is also the most exhausted. Something is not adding up, and today we are going to find out what. Let us start with economics. GDP, gross domestic product, was invented by the economist Simon Kuznets in 1934 as a wartime planning tool. Its purpose was narrow and specific. Measure the total monetary value of goods and services produced in a country in a given year. Kuznets himself, in the very report in which he introduced the concept, wrote a warning that is being almost entirely ignored ever since. Kuznets' warning in 1934, the welfare of a nation can scarcely be inferred from a measurement of national income. Simon Kuznets' report to the U.S. Congress, 1934. He knew, the man who invented GDP told us at the moment of its birth that it could not measure human welfare, and for 90 years we have used it as though it could. GDP counts a car crash as economic growth. Because of the hospital bills, the repairs, the legal fees, it counts the production of cigarettes, the building of prisons, the manufacture of weapons. It does not count volunteer work, care for the elderly parents, the quality of sleep, the strength of friendship, and the sense that your life has meaning. It is as Robert F. Kennedy said in 1968, a measure of everything except that which makes life worthwhile. Here's a research finding for you. The Easterlin Paradox, identified by economist Richard Easterlin in 1974, found that beyond a moderate income threshold, increases in national wealth do not produce increases in reported happiness. Across 30 countries studied over 60 years, GDP growth and life satisfaction showed no long-term correlation. What kept growing? We did not keep getting happier. Now here is where philosophy enters. The question is not simply whether GDP is a bad metric, it clearly is. The deeper question is, why do we keep using it? And the answer is that it reflects a set of assumptions about what human life is for. The philosopher Hannah Arendt, writing in 1958, distinguished between three modes of human activity: labor, the biological maintenance of life, repetitive and consumed; work, the fabrication of durable objects and ideas that outlast us; and action, political and creative engagement with others, the domain in which meaning is generally made. Her warning was that modern industrial society, and she would say even more sharply, the digital economy, had collapsed everything into labor. We produce, we consume, we produce more. The cycle accelerates. Work and action, the domains of meaning and legacy, get squeezed out. We are, she argued, in danger of becoming what she called animal laborans, the laboring animal, rather than the homo faber, the meaning-making human. A 2023 Gallup State of the Global Workforce report surveyed over 120,000 workers in 160 countries. 59% reported being quietly quitting, present at work, but psychologically disengaged. 23% reported active burnout. The estimated cost to the global economy, $8.8 trillion, or 9% of global GDP. The productivity paradox closes on itself. The cost of ignoring human well-being in pursuit of output is measured in the output lost. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about what he called the absurd, the collision between the human need for meaning and the universe's silence on the matter. His answer was not despair, it was revolt, the conscious, defiant choice to live as though meaning matters, even in the absence of cosmic guarantees. But Camus was writing before the algorithm, before the 70-hour work week was gamified with productivity apps and hustle culture aesthetics, before rest was rebranded as laziness and busyness became a social status signal. A landmark study published in PNAS in 2021 by Matthew Killingsworth re-examined the relationship between income and well-being. He found that happiness does not continue to rise with income, but with a critical caveat. Only for people who already feel their lives are being meaningful. For people who describe their lives as lacking meaning, more money made almost no difference to reported happiness. The missing variable was never income, it was meaning. And here's the structural problem. The economy we have built is extraordinarily efficient at producing things and extraordinarily poor at producing conditions for meaning. It rewards speed, scale, and measurable output. It provides no mechanism, no market signal, no GDP line for the slow, inefficient, deeply human activities that make life feel worth living. Deep conversation, craft contemplation, service to others, the raising of children, the care of the dying. Now here's a question for you. I want you to think about the last time you felt generally productive. Not busy, not efficient, not productive in a way that felt meaningful. What were you doing? I will bet it was not the task that ticked the most boxes on a to-do list. Now think about the last time you felt most alive. Was that the same moment or a completely different one? Drop that answer in the comments. The gap between those two answers, between feeling productive and feeling alive, is the entire subject of this episode. The economist Kate Raworth, whose Doughnut Economics model has been adopted by cities from Amsterdam to Copenhagen, argues that we need to stop asking, how much is the economy growing? And start asking, how are the people doing? It sounds obvious. It is, in practice, a revolutionary demand. Because it requires us to build different instruments, to count things that matter, but resist counting. The New Zealand government's well-being budget, introduced in 2019, was the first national budget in the world to make mental health, child poverty, and indigenous well-being explicit targets alongside GDP. It is imperfect, but it is a beginning, an acknowledgement that Kuznets was right in 1934, and we have spent 90 years ignoring him. The paradox of productivity is not that we are doing something wrong, it is that we've been measuring the wrong things for so long that we've forgotten to ask, what are the right things? GDP tells how much the engine is running. It tells you nothing about whether you are doing something worth going. The paradox of productivity is not that we are doing something wrong. It is that we've been measuring the wrong things for so long that we have forgotten to ask what the right things are. GDP tells you how much the engine is running. It tells you nothing about whether you are going somewhere worth going. What would you add to GDP if you could measure one thing that currently gets left out? Tell me in the comments. The most interesting answers will open next week's episode.